So good morning again. Welcome to this morning's Center State CEO and Greater Oswego Fulton Chamber of Commerce session on managing stress while maintaining a healthy work-life balance. My name is Shannon Fultz, and I am the Strategic Programs and Events Coordinator at Center State CEO and the GOFCC, and I will be moderating the program for today. We're happy to have Steve Jobson from Crouse Health's HelpPeople Employee Assistance Program here today. Mr. Jobson graduated from SU with a master's degree in social work. He has worked in substance abuse counselor at Alpha House and patient rehabilitation program as a social worker at the mobile evaluation, at Elmcrest Children's Center, as a psychiatric evaluator at Krause Irving Memorial's Emergency Psychiatric Observation Service and the mobile evaluation and referral service, as a social worker at Upstate Medical Center, and as the director of Liberty Resource Employee Assistance Program. Currently working as a training and development coordinator for Crouse Health HelpPeople Employee Assistance Program. Mr. Jobson has over 30 years of clinical social work experience, so we are very excited to have Steve Jobson here with us to present today's topic. A couple other quick notes before we get started. Everyone will be muted throughout the program except for Steve and myself and possibly Beth McCarthy, who is the clinical manager at HelpPeople. You are welcome to submit questions or comments into the chat feature, and we can answer those throughout, or we can tackle all those right at the end, and you may see myself or Beth replying to those, or Beth and Steve both can start replying at the end of the program as well. We are recording the program, so if there's anything you want to check out after or anyone that you want to share that with, it will be on the Center State CEO YouTube page where all of our other recordings are as well. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Steve, and we're going to go ahead and get started.
Thank you, Shannon. Good morning, everyone. My name is Steve Jobson from Crouse Health HelpPeople, it's a tongue twister, Employee Assistance Program, and we're very grateful to be invited to your program today. We're going to talk about managing change while creating a healthy work-life balance. And there is a chat room open, so if you have any questions or comments, feel free to chime in. Is this you or someone you know? Change equals stress. Change is everywhere and it's happening all the time. So it's ubiquitous, it's incessant. Change is a part of life, and it's when people deny that or try to avoid it that stress is the result. Stress is also a universal experience for all human beings. Stress gets a bad name because somehow, oh my gosh, you're stressed and stress will kill you. Well, it'll only kill you if you don't deal with your stress. Every human being has stress. It's what we do to identify it, engage it, and resolve it in healthy ways. Stress is really trying to save your life by telling you that something important to you feels threatened. And the challenge with stress is trying to figure out what it is that's important that feels threatened. We're going to talk about how we can healthfully deal with those two things, change and stress. So understanding change. One of the first things I'm going to say is, you know, when you go to a training, sometimes they even pass out a copy of the training. So you have a copy of the training right in front of you, and then we put it up on a board or a TV screen, and so it's right there in front of you. And then your trainer does a Ferris Bueller and reads every single word, almost insulting. You're educated people, I'm not going to do that. Now, there may be a slide or two where it makes sense to talk about what's up there, but my job isn't to read every single word there because it's there in front of you. Mine is to try to make what's important about these slides come to life and be understanding, that you can understand. So what is change? Why is it that change is such a challenge for some people? How do we effectively respond to it? How does it impact me? If I need to try to understand change, I need to try to understand all of these things. And probably the most important one, if there is an important one, here's a second one. What are the benefits and risks of this change? What is it that I have to do in order to get what's going to be good for me or for my job, my department, my team, in order to incorporate the change and be moving ahead for the organization? And so these are things to think about as managers, if we have managers here, or even line workers, how to understand change, because it's not going to go away. It's always going to happen. and we need to engage it in a positive way. So why do people resist change? Well, they're afraid. Am I going to fail? We were talking before this training started. One of the things I had to learn at 67 years old was that remote counseling can happen. I'm an old dinosaur social worker where I thought we all had to be in the same room. I had to be able to see you. You had to be able to see me in order to get something accomplished. And I learned with the advent of this year that that's not the case. You can do remote counseling. We can do Zoom trainings. We can do these things. And as much as I wanted to resist it because it was a change, I had to engage it. And I've learned not only is it meaningful and it's positive for people who are engaged in this, the customers, but it's also a good thing for me to have to learn, and I learned it. And so I know that when folks come to me and think that I'm the expert in this, I know they're in a bad way because they're relying on me, but you learn about those things. You get past your fear of failure. You don't want to become burnout. And we'll talk about burnout a little bit. And sometimes people resist change because the things that are taking place in their life are happening out there, but it's following them to work. And so the things that are taking place in their private and their social life are affecting them on the job because they're having a hard time dealing with and understanding what I need to do here because of the stuff that's happening out there. Sometimes people are easily frustrated, and now we have this new change. It's not always easy for folks to understand of, okay, just when I got used to, this is the way that I got my job done. Now we're going to change something. You know, Crouse HelpPeople has a lot of different companies, all different kinds of work. And when folks come to us, a lot of times, it's because the way that we used to do this job is changing. And so the people doing the job have to change with that. And sometimes people will resist that, not just individuals, whole departments will resist that we got to change this thing. Change is going to happen. We need to engage it. We need to get past our human nature qualities of wanting to resist it and wishing it away. It won't always go away. We need to try to understand and engage it. How one is affected by change depends on what's taking place for them. Where are they in their work cycle life? You know, are they new employees? Are they employees who've been there 20, 30 years? Or are they employees been there 30 or more years, just a couple years away from retirement? Depending on those kinds of things, those life circumstances, that'll affect how someone is, you know, dealing with the change. The change itself, how long is this change going to last? Is this the new norm? Now, you know, one of the things that 2020 has brought us, that this COVID is a transformational phenomena. There certainly are, no matter what the kind of companies, different ways of doing business that we will never go back to the old ways completely. Now, sure, we'll return to some of the former models, but to completely do business the way that it was just a year ago, it's not going to happen. Things have been transformed that much. So what's the duration of change? How long is it going to last? In some cases, like right now, it's going to last everything, all in the future. How much control do I have over change? Maybe you don't have any because it's being handed down from above. And here's what you have to do with your contribution from your department, your team, your desk for the organization. Here's what you need to do. Sometimes you have a lot of control. Well, we want you to be a part of the team as we develop this need for change. And sometimes you can have a lot of input and influence of how that change gets expressed, how it gets executed. What's the history of change? You know, depending on the company or the department or the field, you know, maybe it's some kind of an enterprise where, you know, you can only melt metal one way, you think, until somebody comes up with a different way. So, you know, what is it that our company does? And how is it that we can see that maybe there are other ideas that can be brought in to help us get the outcome that everybody's striving for? What's the impact going to be? What's the reaction of the other people who are being affected by this? That all comes in to affect the individual on how do we deal with the change. Respectful relationships are essential for effective change. And here's one of those slides where I'm probably going to read just about everything here. Individuals respond to change differently. And so, jumping down to the third one, we need to accept the differences and the different ways that individuals respond to the change. That's a respectful relationship. Individuals are influenced by different belief systems, morals, values, and experiences. And in order to create the outcome we're all desiring, an appreciation of diversity, and the next step of diversity is inclusion, the action of taking inclusion about individuals with the different beliefs, morals, values, and experiences is important in creating respectful relationships. The realization that we're all different is meaningless and impotent unless we also include the next step of inclusion. We have to bring other ideas into the format to help us understand problems. Because the one universal experience all human beings have on this planet is we're problem solvers. And when we include people from different ideas, different orientations to look at a problem and try to solve it, we're more empowered in doing that way. Change and transition. Change occurs when something ends and/or something new or different begins. Transition involves the period in between the ending of something and the beginning of something new or different. That's transition. And so right now we're at a period of transition where the old way of doing business pre-COVID has ended. We have new ideas that we're incorporating now, and we're working them out. We're feeling them, seeing whether or not this works, that doesn't, and much to my ignorance will say, it's working. You know, telephone counseling is working. Zoom meeting counseling and trainings are working. And so I was wrong. We're still in transition. We're going to be moving towards a different model, but right now we're in transition. Losses and opportunities exist with change and transition. There are models of Zoom and other ways of thinking about this, and maybe there's other ways we can improve. Almost certainly there's ways we can improve this, because we're always in this continual process of quality improvement. Change and transition. The change is when something ends, and then when something new begins, but the transition, that period we're in now, that's that part in between. Phases of transition. So as we look at the period of transition we're in right now, think about what I was talking about with you need to see clients in a social work kind of, dynamic face to face. Well, I was in denial initially. No, we can't do telephone counseling and all that kind of stuff. You're minimizing, you're resistant. And when you get into resistant, these are different stages of the phases here. Loss, I know that I was angry, but I was probably whining and a little rigid. This will never work. I can't believe it. And then there's a commitment to cooperation. When my boss, Beth, was like, well, we're going to try this. I'm going to try it. You become team-oriented. Okay, I'm part of the team. Let's try it. And you know what? Exploration, it worked. Because when the customers are saying, thank you, that was helpful, that's our measure. How do you measure whether or not whatever is taking place is working? By the customer feedback. And when the customers are saying thank you for that phone conversation, which I never would have thought would have been enough because you have to see people face to face, I was becoming a believer. I was buying into the process because now I've had the experience, a little awkward maybe. I've had the experience where, you know what, it does work. And let's do the next one. And let's do the next one. And let's move from counseling to training. And so we've been doing 100% of our trainings this way, and they're working. And so the phases of transition start off with, again, these are human nature kind of responses. Denial. It's not like I can't wait till they try something new so I can show them what denial is all about. You're not doing that. It's a human nature response. You're going to deny, you're going to resist. You're going to eventually toy with the idea of commitment, and then eventually, hopefully, if you choose to grow, you're going to end up in exploration. Okay, how do we work this thing out? How can we get to where we want to be? Types of losses. When change occurs, there are losses. Not knowing what's the future going to look like. You know, we've been making fenders this way forever. You know, think about 19 oh whatever, and that horseshoe blacksmith pounding on his anvil, and that horseless buggy goes by. All of a sudden, people don't need horseshoes. What is it that I'm going to do now? Well, that blacksmith had transferable skill sets of being able to fashion steel and metal. And so he may not be making as many horseshoes, but he may need to make fenders for a Dodge or a Ford. And so the way of what it is he's doing is going to change. But in the meantime, there's this loss of security. Oh my gosh, I got this horseshoe anvil and I don't know what's going to take place. I mean, the loss is a potential opportunity for the person to develop new skills, new ways of thinking about the things you already have the quality capabilities of, and moving them into a direction that other customers need that you can supply. Types of lost competency. Well, I'm really good at horseshoes. I don't know how good I'll be at fenders. Well, starting off, you may not be the best, but eventually, you know what? I'll bet you can help us. And in fact, I'll bet you can help lead bringing in the next generation of steel workers and tin knockers and help us this way. The relationships, but within an organization, when things change, sometimes, you know, I'm this department interfaces with this department, or this department interfaces with this individual. And with new processes, those kinds of things are no longer necessary. And so we miss having that interface between this department and all the people there, or this individual. But that's evolution, that's quality improvement, that's a change in effectiveness and efficiency. And if you can increase the quality of the effectiveness and efficiency in any organization, you're a valued employee. And then the loss of direction. Well, we've always done this, moving towards this. Yes, okay, but now we have to include this so that the direction seems fuzzy, but you know what? We're still moving forward. And we're developing that together as a team or as a department of an organization. The types of losses are important to understand, especially as managers, because they exist at the individual, the team, and even the organizational level, all three levels. Reactions to loss. Now again, these are kind of human nature. And in this screen, we're actually starting at the bottom. Because initially, when there's a loss, we're fearful, we're resistant to it. We may actually engage in some kind of, you know, when I was a director at a different EAP company, one of our customer companies was having huge changes in the way that they did business. A big part of the company's production was literally moving to China. And so on their campus, they had people who were losing $100,000 a year jobs with high school diplomas, but very good skill sets, but it was going away. And so one building was sabotaging another building, and this was real stuff. We were present at those places because the company was asking us to come help them deal with all this stuff. So the reaction to the loss is, in real world, this aggression, sabotaging. Now that's not always the case, but it was here. This was local. This was in our community. Human nature moves from that resistance and fear and aggression eventually to neutrality. It's like, okay, whatever, I guess I can't stop this, so whatever. So the challenge to the managers and administration is to nudge the employees, the workforce, towards an upper level of cooperation, support, and acceptance. And you can't jam them up there. You can't force them up there. You have to lead them up there. And we do different trainings, and leadership is one of them. And so as you lead your employees out of that basic basal human nature of fear, sabotage, aggression, resistance, up to neutrality, which is a stage you got to move through in order to get to acceptance. That's an important process, an important journey, helping workforces deal with the reactions to loss. Some of the things that accentuate, especially negative responses to change, are these things which were always present. These are always kind of in the background of any organization, at any time, whether change is coming or not. Sometimes we work long hours. Sometimes it's 12 hours on, 12 hours off, 1 day on, 1 day off. If you're a fire department, they often work those kinds of shifts. Heavy work assignment, boy, I come in and the desk is piled or the workload is huge. Lack of support, it's me and our team and not a lot around to support us. All these things are almost always there for certain kinds of jobs. And then you introduce change. And so if you have this like as the background and then change coming in on top of that with the stress that's associated with it, and we're not recognizing the impact it's having on our employees, we're kind of, queuing up for ourselves some kind of a backlash of what's going to come because we're not preparing ourselves or the employees well enough for what's over the horizon, this change. And we need to think about how we can recognize some of these things that have always been there in the background, but they still keep showing up to work every day in spite of this. I'm not saying all companies have all of these things, but if it's back there and then we introduce change, sometimes it's because this background moves to the forefront. And we just have to understand that. And it's not any specific employees, poor perception or basic human nature or personal nature. It's human nature that brings out a lot of these things because it's fear-based. Burnout. Now, this is a great clinical definition of burnout. And I think it's a good explanation because there's a duality in 3 areas. It's emotional and physical exhaustion caused by prolonged and excessive stress. When you feel overwhelmed and unable. So there's a duality in 3 different levels here that results in burnout. Because if you go back and you pick one of any of those 3, it's physical, excessive, and overwhelming. That's filling up sandbags in order to keep the river or the lake from swamping your house. That's not burnout. That's just a real busy, tough physical day. The concept of burnout is it's emotional and physical. Exhaustion. My brain, the way I feel about things, and my whole body just feels exhausted. It's prolonged and excessive. So it's not like it's been this little tiny problem in the background that's been there forever. It's been this big excessive thing that's taking place for a very long time. And I feel overwhelmed and unable. So burnout is a real thing. People are affected by it. We need to recognize their interaction in their job and how it's affecting them as managers to help them through whatever it is that's taking place. And don't forget EAP, we're an employee assistance program that can be your ally. Just push the EAP card across the table and say, we got this program, give them a call, they can help. Burnout's a real thing. You just have to recognize it and help your people deal with it in healthy ways. Some of the symptoms, irritability, low self-esteem because people start feeling like I can't do it, I'm no good, I don't know why I'm here, what am I doing, what made me think I could do this, a negative attitude. And sometimes burnout isn't just one person. It can be a number of people on a team. It could be an entire team. It could be part of a department. It could be different parts of, and so as a manager, you're looking at your workforce, your people, and seeing what's the impact? What is the workload having on my people? You hit the floors, you walk the floors, you see what's taking place. If there's this bickering taking place, relationship discord, if there's this bickering taking place between the day shift and the evening shift, and we have companies calling us up saying, help us sort this stuff out. If that's happening, that's telling the management and the institution, the organization, something's not working right here. And so you have to be watching out for these things. Compromised work performance. You know, on the day shift, we're getting 100 widgets a shift. On the evening shift, we're lucky if we get 50, and some of those get kicked back to quality assurance. You know, there's something's taking place. What's taking place? Symptoms of burnout. Compassion fatigue. This more often is associated to human service agencies, but it doesn't have to only be there. If Center State has human service agencies like the Rescue Mission or Salvation Army or Liberty Resources or hospitals, it's the cost associated with caring for the emotional and physical needs of others that can over time contribute to the lack of compassion and empathy for the clients we serve. I think this is an important slide, and that's why I read every word, because compassion fatigue, we're here to serve the people who have this need that this company is set up for to deliver. Yet somehow, over time, because of the impact in the human faces I'm seeing coming in with this need, that they're always coming in with this need, and it's like this endless line, it has an impact on the provider. That frontline employee who's meeting them, who's interacting with them, maybe literally providing services or goods to them. Again, this isn't a failure of a personality or a character trait for someone. This is a human nature phenomena that over time we become inured. We become a little more difficult to get into and care about the needs of this person who are coming to us for whatever need it is that we're set up to provide. And the important part for management is it's not a failure on that person's fault. It's the nature of the business that we're engaged in has this impact on human beings. And so what does it look like? What can we do to deal with it? You establish healthy boundaries. Look, we're here from 8 to 4, we're here from 9 to 5, and we're going to do the best we can within those hours. And you try to help people realize at the end of the day, you can't take this home. You can't take home the fact that there are people with need in our community that have to come to us for the kinds of services and goods and products that we provide, because that's what we're here for. And if you go home and you focus or dwell on that or allow that to erode how you're trying to enjoy the rest of your life, you're not taking healthy ways of dealing with this. In fact, you're setting yourself up for burnout. You're setting yourself up to not be available to help us tomorrow. And we need you to come back and help us tomorrow. So you got to talk about solutions. If it's happening to you, you talk to your supervisor about that. You're looking for new ways, if I'm going to have to go down to the west side and provide some kind of thing while I'm down there, why don't I also take some of the other things that other team's doing, because we could deliver both of them at the same time. You're strategizing, you're brainstorming, all these things about what can we do to provide services in a better, more efficient and effective way. That's what you're trying to do. And then probably one of the most important things is don't take on the responsibilities that don't belong to you as an individual, as a team or a department. Let somebody else deal with that. Deal with your responsibilities. Working in high-risk situations, and that could be anything. It's certainly not just a human service function. There's high risk with police departments, fire departments, hospitals. High risk, you could be IBEW, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. It could be National Grid, all those things. The one thing they all have in common, if you're going to be involved in a high-risk situation, you got to know what your policy and procedures are organizationally. You got to know that they're written down somewhere, and we need to understand them, and we need to comply with them as best as we can when we're on the ground out there. You need to keep your supervisor involved with what's taking place, what you're going out on. Okay, we're running out the blah, blah, blah job. Okay, we got this call, we got to get out there. You got to keep people in the information realm informed what's going on. What are the internal and external resources? Well, okay, we're ready for this. Who else we better call? We better call the town and get some of their, road crew people up there too, because they're going to have to, we need to get the police to, monitor traffic while we're out there. You need to think what else is going to have to be in place to support what you need. Reactivity versus responsiveness. We do whole trainings on that, reactivity versus responsiveness. Reactivity is when something happens like that. Responsiveness is when something happens like that. It takes just a millisecond longer, but you're thinking about what I need to do versus reacting. Because reactivity doesn't include thought all the time. It's action. There's stimulus, there's action. Responsiveness is stimulus, thought, then action. And you're trying to control your reactivity, especially when you're dealing with high-risk situations. And you want to remain focused on the client needs and the overall goals. What are we here for? Well, there was a windstorm that took power out. Okay, so our overall goal is to restore power, but at the moment, we want to do it in a safe way. So we need to get somebody up to the leading end of the current field and turn that off before we go in and touch any wires or limbs. So we got to think about things in a non-reactive way. Coping with ending. Well, went a little too far, excuse me. Coping with ending says, we talked about endings there a little earlier. We have to cope with them. We have to allow, without getting hokey, we have to allow ourselves time to, we had a good run. We made air conditioners in the town of DeWitt for, 50 years. They're not making them there anymore. But in terms of the entire company, the tin knockers, they're not here. But the accountants, they're still here. The architects and the engineers are still here because they're designing the units that they're making in China. So just parts of the company left. Other parts are still here. But we need to grieve as an organization those important parts that made up most of the employees over there. It's going to be different. You take it, you do it in a planned way. You take it a step at a time. If you're management or administration, you write it all down. If you're the person, and even managers need to ask for clarification from further up the information chain there. But to the individual who's affecting all this, being affected by all of this, you're asking for clarification. Well, how does this fit? How is what I'm doing or not going to be doing any longer fit with where we're going and interact with other parts of the company? What are the gains and losses? For me personally, for the department, organization. And you reach out to others, both internally and externally. How can we support each other through these times of change? And how do we get there together in a way that helps sustain as much as we can with the identity of who we had been and who we want to become? Explore and establish opportunities for stabilizing the connectedness around the change. It's a little wordy, but really what it's saying is, look, the change isn't going to make the organization go away. We're hoping it makes us, again, more effective and efficient so we can continue to have the product delivery that we've been known to do. We want to become associated with this. People wanted air conditioners, they went to Carrier. That's why we do what we do. We associate with people who are supportive and encouraging. There's going to be people who, this is never going to work and I don't care, but they're going to go away because they want to stick around and whine about it. You want to associate with people who are going to be supportive. You know what? I think we can do this. I think this is going to be helpful. I think we're going to be better off once we get past all this and incorporate the new realm of how we're going to do things. I think we're going to be okay. You do that. Be healthy and balanced in your self-care. You know, self-care isn't selfishness if you do it in a healthy and appropriate way. Look for opportunity and growth because, again, it's there. What are the learning opportunities? You know, I never knew what Zoom was until I found out that's how we're going to do business. So you learn about Zoom and you realize, hey, not only can I do it at work, you know, over the Father's Day thing, I got sons spread throughout the country. So we had a Zoom meeting in the afternoon and everybody was barbecuing something different. And yet we had this Zoom meeting with folks from Florida and Oregon and Albany and all over the world. And it worked. So you have learning opportunities, how to pull people together, even though they're in disparate areas. You have learning opportunities. Chance for growth and development. Maybe the fact that they're changing the way we're doing business here can help me as an individual. Maybe if not only do I take the Zoom, now I'm not talking about me personally, but maybe if not only do I learn, I'm going to take that course, that Bill Gates course about the computer and how to use it and the internet and all that stuff. So maybe there's a stepping stone that can get you to the next level, which is new doors. You know, the boss has always been saying that they need a team leader position filled. And I've always resisted that, but you know, maybe the timing with all of this, learning Zoom, taking that course, maybe now I should take that team leader test and see if I can't get to move up administratively in the company. There's opportunities for personal growth and for departmental. We have to see what we can do with all of this in a positive way. Taking care of yourself. And that's self-reflection. You know, challenge your negative thought. I can't do this. I know I felt that way. Wait, we're going to do what? I got to learn what? And you find out you can. You focus on the present. What's the worst that could happen? If I engage this, if I accept this, what's the worst that could happen? Be aware of unrealistic expectations of yourself and others. You know, if I do this, then they're going to expect me to have to do that. And why doesn't so-and-so have to do that? Reframe adversity. Adversity is opportunity. There's nothing wrong with having a healthy and respectful sense of humor. It'll get you through an awful lot of difficult situations. There are a lot of phone app on your smartphones for deep breathing, meditation, mindfulness, a lot of things that can calm you down. If you're feeling anxious, feeling depressed, there are a lot of things you can do at your desk. Maybe not every workstation or every workplace, but there are things you can do throughout the day to take care of yourself, take a break, take a little walk, get away from your workstation for some period of time throughout the day just to regroup, regather your humanness so you can go back and face what you need to face. But taking care of yourself in healthy ways is not selfishness. An important thing to recognize and engage in. HelpPeople is a mental health and work-related program. And I don't know if here we want to ask Beth McCarthy to join us or not, and maybe have Beth speak about this.
Sure. I just, you know, Steve, I just want to say that, you know, thank you. We've all gone through a significant amount of change over the past 3+ months, right? And it's undeniable that with that, we've experienced some level of stress during COVID-19. Well, these stressors and others can certainly have a notable effect on your physical, mental, and emotional well-being. Well, HelpPeople is an employee assistance program, and I just kind of wanted to put this out there if anyone does have the particular need. It's an employee assistance program that offers support and counseling assistance for employees and family members. We kind of look at ourselves as a go-to resource for any kind of personal mental health or work-related assistance that's needed. We are, as Steve mentioned, we do offer telehealth. We're doing mostly telehealth because that's preferable at this time, but we do in person as well. The service is designed so there is no cost to employees, and it's a confidential program too, so nothing goes back to employers. So I just kind of we wanted to put this in here. If there is a need, we all of us need some support, and we're really happy to be that resource. We have locations. We have 3 locations locally: Liverpool, Syracuse, and Fulton. And I would just like to say that I hope that everyone has a program like this, because I think it's, especially during a time like this, but at any given time, it's something we all need to get through and to keep people healthy and happy at their jobs, and to keep things running smoothly. So if there is ever a need, we wanted to let you know that we're here. You can contact us at this phone number down below on the slide here, or at through our website. So thank you for giving us a moment to just talk about our program.
Beth, I just want to point out too, to everybody while this slide is up, Center State has had this available to employees for quite a while. And I will say HelpPeople does such a great job at providing the information that they have available. I know over the years, we've had presentations right at Center State CEO by somebody from HelpPeople to just come in and say who they are and what they offer, and just really make it clear that it's available. So, you know, obviously many of us at Center State have sat through those presentations to know that these offerings are available for us and for our families. And I think it's, I just wanted to point out that any company that is looking to offer something like this, we've had great experience with HelpPeople through Center State over the years too. And just the way you handle coming in and doing the presentations, you're very flexible and understanding. So it has been something that's really nice to have as an option for our entire team.
Thank you so much, Shannon. I do appreciate that, really. Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you, everybody, for attending.
Steve, is that your last slide right there?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Okay, so if anyone has questions, please feel free to type them in the chat. Steve, that was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Certainly.
A lot of information, and I think it's nice. You give the examples and you give the ways of dealing with them, which I think at this point, everyone's going through so many changes, and it's been such a whirlwind of a few months. So I think, you know, no one was really prepared for this. So any tools we can have in our toolbox at this point are helpful. I will just point out, I do have a question that came through privately. It says, as a manager, how do I stop one employee who is burnt out and has a bad attitude from spreading negative energy to the rest of the team? Anyone want to tackle that one?
Steve, do you want to take it, or do you want me
Well,
to
I was going to defer to you, but
sure. You know what? It's a great question. I think we always look at how does negativity play itself out in the workplace, and and then as a supervisor, it's really the supervisor's job to really address that with the employee specifically, and to look at specifically how does that again play itself out? What are the behaviors that are shown? So it really can be a disciplinary issue, and maybe also addressing what's behind it. But it's certainly something that has to be addressed, because over time, you know, that kind of thing just tends to get worse. So that's what we look at. We translate negativity into behaviors. What are the behaviors? And then we address those behaviors, because that's a job performance issue. And then again, we see through the EAP, we have a lot of cases that are just this. People are referred to EAP when this kind of thing occurs. And then that could be our job to really help with that negativity, what's going on there, and on a personal level, and hopefully help that person, you know, get back on track.
Great. Another one that came through, Steve, you had mentioned challenging negative thoughts when specifically, you know, when the changes came down about how things are going to have to be virtual, and just the changes in how you'd be doing your job. So obviously that can relate to anyone on this call. Remind us of what those what helped you change those negative thoughts? What helped you shift from, you know, thinking this was going to be a huge challenge and you didn't want to do it, to being able to understand the reasons why and making it? What were some of those things that helped you change your negative thought?
Okay. For me, it was based on, and this is part of where I was talking about, it kind of depends on where a person is in their employment track. So if you're a new employee, you know, right out of the box, right out of college, right out of, you know, high school, whatever it is, versus someone that's been there 10, 15 years, versus someone like myself who's been in the workforce for over 40 years, you have a different well to dip into experientially of how bad is this thing. And so you have a framework within which to measure some of the other challenges you've had in your life of what's this going to be like? What's it really entail? So you're doing an internal introspective kind of, you know, here's what I have available. Here's what it sounds like they need in order for me to catch up with what they expect, and what's that room between the two that I don't have, or where can I get that skills or information to understand and opportunities to try it out to see if it works. And so you're doing a personal kind of a you know, skill agenda assessment. Here's where I'm at, I think, and here's where they're expecting anybody to be, and what will it take for me to be there? Am I already there? You know, is it my own fears that I'm exaggerating, again, to myself, that I'm so far away from what they expect that I can't do it? I mean, you're really soul searching to see what's in my way. And to be very honest in counseling, most of the time, I'm in my way. And once you help a person realize, hey, we found out what's in your way, it's you. Now we can work on that, and we can get you out of your way to where you want to get to. You're going to get to what you need to do.
Always getting in it. At the beginning, you had mentioned, and this is just more of a comment from me. Again, if anyone has questions, feel free to type them in, questions or comments. You had mentioned changing and adjusting skill sets to fit everything that's been going on. And I got to say that I'm on the programs and events teams for Center State CEO. And this was a big shift. We plan events, and we plan in-person events, and you know, we were supposed to have, you know, a golf tournament in June, and we're supposed to have all these networking events and a huge annual meeting in April, and none of that could happen. And it was, before this, we didn't have to do much virtually. People wanted to gather, they wanted that in-person contact for the networking opportunity. And this was a big change. We shifting everything from in-person to virtual immediately. We were doing anywhere from 2 to 3 programs a week. We're trying to spread it out a little right now in the summer, because we know folks are going to try and enjoy the weather that good old upstate New York is finally giving us. But that is a big shift, and that was a big adjustment. And I mean, I was laughing at the beginning before we let everyone on with Beth and Steve saying we were practicing the Zoom calls to make sure we had all those glitches figured out, just because it was so new to us. So it is a big adjustment, and you have to be open to shifting those so we can all continue on as normal as possible, I suppose. So that was, I would definitely say, being willing to adjust that skill set and flexibility. And, you know, at the beginning, we thought it was just going to be, you know, maybe 3 weeks, and here we are. So you got to be flexible and roll with it, I guess.
You're absolutely right. You know, I'm one of the trainers, and it's so different doing it this way. And it probably came across today how I'm still trying to massage out some of the awkwardness, you know, and I hope it wasn't too bad.
You did great.
But when you're standing in front of a group of people, it's so different. You know, you have the immediate interaction. You can read their faces. Yeah, that line worked, it didn't work, or I don't think they got what I was trying to convey, you know? So there's that immediacy when you're in the room. And then now you're in this, whatever this is, that, you know, it's different, and you just have to keep learning it. You know, you just have to keep doing it and learning it, and don't let it roll over you. You know, you gotta grab a hold of it and hold on.
Exactly. I think another great item you just mentioned towards the end is kind of stepping away from your workspace. I know that was something, that's definitely something that, you know, in the office setting, Center State was always telling us, take a lunch break, take a walk, do something, get up, stretch, because we're there, and you get busy, and you might lose track of time, or you're diving into a project, and you might sit there and eat lunch at your desk, and which isn't great to do anyway. You need to step away, like you said, and being home and stepping away, it's almost even harder. You set up wherever you might work for the day, but guess what? It's still in your home. So whether you take that break or not, your workspace is still in your home. And that's been an interesting balance. I know there's a lot of folks like me that are working home and have young kids at home as well, and finding that balance that is not always the easiest is something that I think it's going to be a continuing learning process for many of us, including me. You have to, I definitely think it's easier now too with the nice weather, but stepping away and just taking a break and, getting unplugging for a few minutes, it's kind of needed.
Yeah, it's therapeutic.
Yeah.
Shannon, that's true. Sometimes we don't realize how those small things impact us. Being in the office, being able to walk around and just talk to people here and there. And so we do have to, sometimes we realize over time how unhappy it makes us. So I think we've got to look at those things. What were those things that kind of made us happy in that other environment? And how can we, recreate even in small ways? I've talked to many people who are like, oh, I've got back pain, I've got this, because, I don't get up all day. And so we have to, it's important, so those things are important. So I think we have to kind of look at how we can make things better. And even the small things are important. And if we can make those small changes and realize, okay, that's something we can build on that. So
absolutely. And I think it's helpful too. Steve had mentioned some of the self-care tips, whether it's an app on your phone or meditation or something like that. Just fitting that in, fitting it in as much as possible. I mean, it's definitely hard, but even if it's just, I try to at least take a quick walk outside for a little while and, pack up the dog and my son and get on my way for a bit. But you really you need to take a break. And honestly, I've said it before, but, Center State they want us taking that break. They don't want us to, going back to the burnout definition. There's a lot in that definition. They don't want us feeling that way. And I know a lot of companies are like that. And I think it's up to us sometimes to figure out what works best for us, especially now if we're all home in our own environment. It's not an office environment, figuring out what works best for us and just trying to fit that in during the day. So I think that is everything, and the whole presentation was wonderful and helpful. So thank you. At this time, I don't have any more questions over in the chat. So unless you have anything else, I'm just going to touch on this slide right here before we close out. Center State CEO has had an entire COVID-19 resource page from the beginning. We are constantly updating our resources. We have a whole reopening toolkit that is updated throughout the phased reopenings, as well as all of our upcoming programs and events. So as I mentioned earlier, we are slowing down on the frequency of events a little bit, just because we want to make sure we're still getting folks. I would like to say, since doing the online virtual programming, we've had over 3,000 people, well over that now. That number is actually from a couple weeks ago, but over 3,000 people tune in, which is wonderful. We've had some great topics on there. The feedback we've gotten has been wonderful. So we're going to keep doing it. If you have any suggestions on topics, you're welcome to contact us and give us those suggestions. We obviously are a member-based organization, and we want to be providing what the members feel is necessary. So reach out to us at support@centerstateceo.com, or you can reach out to me directly. But check out Center State CEO for events and programs and resources, and just keep up to date there. So with that, I just want to thank Steve and Beth both for being on here and providing such great information. And if anyone has any questions or wants to share this, again, like I said, it will be up on the Center State CEO YouTube page. But with that, I will say thank you, and we will wrap up.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
You too.